Welcome to today's lesson on translation and culture. In this session, we will explore how cultural factors shape the way we translate between English and Vietnamese translation is not just about converting words from one language to another. It's about transferring meaning, intention, politeness, and cultural values. Throughout this lesson, we will learn why some expressions cannot be translated literally, why Vietnamese politeness or kinship terms do not exist in English, and why English idioms or metaphors often sound strange when we translate them word for word. Our main goal today is to understand how culture influences translation choices. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to identify culture-specific challenges and apply strategies that make translations more natural and meaningful for readers of both languages. In this first slide, we begin by understanding why culture plays a central role in translation. When we translate, we do not only transfer words, we transfer meaning, intention, and cultural values. That means a translator must always consider the cultural background of both the source text and the target audience. 1. Role of culture in translation. Culture shapes the way people think, speak, behave, and interpret messages. Two sentences with the same literal meaning can have different implications depending on cultural norms. Example, English, just call me John. Vietnamese, people may hesitate to call an older person by name due to hierarchy. This shows that translation cannot ignore power distance and social expectations. So the role of culture is to give meaning to language beyond vocabulary. As translators, we must identify these cultural elements and find ways to represent them appropriately. 2. Why culturally loaded words lose meaning in literal translation. This slide shows how cultural values shape communication, which directly affects how we translate between English and Vietnamese. 1. Individualism versus collectivism. English is more individualistic, so speakers are direct and straightforward. Vietnamese is collectivist, so messages are often softened to maintain harmony. Example, Ien, no. Vien, Je em shem lai jan ne. 2. Power distance. Vietnamese uses pronouns that reflect age and hierarchy. English uses neutral you, so we must remove or adjust these kinship terms. Example, Da con chao bak a. Not, hello uncle. Correct. Hello sir. Good morning. 3. High context versus low context. Vietnamese relies on implied meaning. English requires clarity. Translators must make hidden meaning explicit when moving into English. Key point. Good translation adjusts tone, politeness, and directness to fit the target culture, not just the words. Good translation requires adapting tone and directness to match the cultural norms of the target language, not translating word for word. Culture-specific items are words or concepts that belong to one culture and have no direct equivalent in another language. These usually include foods, festivals, social practices, kinship terms, and idioms. Because their meaning is cultural rather than lexical, literal translation often fails. 1. Examples of CSI's food, bánh chưng, phio, fish and chips. Festivals, Tết, Trung Thu, Thanksgiving, social items, Vietnamese pronouns, British afternoon tea, idioms, An Quan Ho Ke Trong Chai, break the ice too. Translation strategies simplified. A. Borrowing, transference po B. Descriptive translation, Ban Chung, square sticky rice cake C. Cultural equivalent Li C. Lucky money D. Functional equivalent Jin Shlang, village communal house. In conclusion, CSIs require flexible translation. Our goal is to help the target reader understand the cultural meaning, not just the words. Depending on context, we may keep the word, describe it, or replace it with a culturally similar concept. In this slide, we look at why translating Vietnamese kinship terms is one of the most challenging parts of EV translation. Vietnamese uses a complex system of pronouns that reflect age, power distance, social relationships, formality, and even regional differences. English, on the other hand, uses neutral pronouns like I, you, he, she without built-in hierarchy. 1. Why kinship terms are complex. Vietnamese speakers choose pronouns based on many factors: age difference, power or status relationship, stranger versus friend versus coworker, level of formality, north, central, south variations. All of these make it impossible to translate literally. 2. Translation strategies. Because English does not have this system, we must adapt the message using different strategies. Omission. Remove the kinship term when it doesn't carry meaning in English. Em chào anh. Hello. B. Generic neutral terms. Use polite neutral English words like sir, madam, excuse me, or pronouns. Chị ơi giúp em voi. Excuse me, could you help me? See, functional equivalence. Choose expressions that match the function, politeness, respect, rather than literal words. Da, con come on back. Thank you 100%, sir. Ko oi, calling a shopkeeper. Excuse me. 3. Key reminder. We should not translate kinship terms literally because English speakers only use words like uncle, aunt, or sister for real family members. Our job is to keep the intended politeness, not the exact word. Chi oi giup em voi. Excuse me, could you help me? C. Functional equivalence. Choose expressions that match the function, politeness, respect, rather than literal words. Da, con camon bax. Thank you 100%, sir. Ko oi, calling a shopkeeper. Excuse me. 3. Key reminder. We should not translate kinship terms literally because English speakers only use words like uncle, aunt, or sister for real family members. Our job is to keep the intended politeness, not the exact word. This slide focuses on idioms, proverbs, and metaphors, expressions that carry strong cultural meaning. These cannot be translated literally because their meaning is figurative, not literal. Translators must aim for pragmatic equivalence, matching the message, tone, and cultural intention, not the words. 1. Vietnamese, English examples are An quan ho que trong cây. Literal, when eating fruit, remember the one who planted the tree. More natural, en equivalence. When drinking water, remember its source, show gratitude to those who came before you. Never forget the people who helped you. B. Nuok Jen Chan Moin Hai. Figurative meaning. Leave everything until the last minute. Other natural translations. Procrastinate until the deadline hits. Only act when you have no choice. C. More Vietnamese idioms to illustrate differences. Jung Nui Nai Trong Nui No. The grass is always greener on the other side. Mot Kai Lam Chang Nen Non. No man is an island. Tram Nhi Không Bang Mot Tây. Seeing is believing. These examples show that English equivalents often come from a different metaphor but share the same meaning or moral lesson. 2. English Vietnamese examples. A. Break the ice. Natural VN. Phá vỡ bầu không khí ngại ngùng. Tạo không khí thân thiện ban đầu. B. Once in a blue moon VN. Hiếm khi, rất lâu mới xảy ra một lần. C. More English idioms to illustrate shifts. Hit the nail on the head. Ít nói đúng trọng tâm, nói trúng tim đen. Spill the beans. Vì tiết lộ bí mật. Kill two birds with one stone. Một công đôi việc. A blessing in disguise. In trong cái rủi có cái may. Notice how the imagery
changes completely, but the meaning is preserved. 3. Cultural metaphors. Many idioms use metaphors specific to one culture. For example, Vietnamese uses nature, agriculture, and family imagery, while English often uses animals, sports, and weather. Examples: VN. Làm môi tối nằm không. Too many options lead to nothing.
Ande in hot water, gaprak roy en. The ball is in your court, go quiet jin nam o ban. The key point for students is this: idioms require pragmatic equivalence, not literal mapping. The translator's job is to deliver the intended meaning and emotional tone, even if the words or metaphor change completely. We translate meaning, not imagery, unless the imagery is culturally universal.
Tram nek hong bang mote. Seeing is believing. These examples show that English equivalents often come from a different metaphor but share the same meaning or moral lesson. 2. English, Vietnamese examples A. Break the ice, natural VN. Phá vỡ bầu không khí ngại ngùng, tạo không khí thân thiện ban đầu B. Once in a blue moon, VN. Hiếm khi, rất lâu mới xảy ra một lần. More English idioms to illustrate shifts, hit the nail on the head, nói đúng trọng tâm, nói trúng tim đen, spill the beans, tiết lộ bí mật, kill two birds with one stone, một công đôi việc, a blessing in disguise, in trong cái rồi có cái may. Notice how the imagery changes completely, but the meaning is preserved. 3. Cultural metaphors. Many idioms use metaphors specific to one culture. For example, Vietnamese uses nature, agriculture, and family imagery, while English often uses animals, sports, and weather. Examples: VN. Lắm muối tối nằm không. Too many options lead to nothing.
Ande in hot water, gaprak roy en. The ball is in your court, go quiet jin nam o ban. The key point for students is this: idioms require pragmatic equivalence, not literal mapping. The translator's job is to deliver the intended meaning and emotional tone, even if the words or metaphor change completely. We translate meaning, not imagery, unless the imagery is culturally universal. This slide explains that translation is a balancing act. Whenever we translate, something is often lost, but we can also gain clarity or cultural understanding in the process. The goal is not to avoid loss entirely, but to manage it and make informed choices. 1. Translation loss. Loss happens when some aspect of meaning cannot be carried into the target language. A cultural connotation. Some words have cultural feelings attached that don't transfer. VN, Quay, hometown, but loses emotional warmth. And Thanksgiving lacks cultural resonance in VNB register shift. Formality levels often change in translation. EN, formal, would you mind? VN, Angiup Mvoy, less formal but natural. C, figurative meaning. Idioms often lose imagery. VN, Jau Tat Mat Toy, extremely busy, image lost. EN, on thin ice. Gap Rak Roi, metaphor lost. 2, translation gain. Gain means we add clarity or explanation to make the meaning more accessible for the target audience. And A, clarification. VN, that Vietnamese Lunar New Year, we add details so English readers understand. B, explicitness. VN tends to be high context. EN requires explicit meaning. VN, chung juoch. EN, it's acceptable, but I'm not fully convinced. C, cultural adaptation. EN, barbecue. VN, tikinuong ngoai troy. EN, cheers. VN, chuk suk kui or dzo. Depending on context, EN, VN, you. English you is neutral, but Vietnamese forces us to choose age and status. Possible equivalents. Im, an, chi, ban, ko, chu, te. The translator gains specificity but also loses neutrality. VN, ien, em, an, chi. When translating back into English, we must generalize because English only has you. Em, cho, an. I'm waiting for you, Chigup Mvoy. Can you help me? Here, loss of hierarchy is unavoidable. Translation always involves loss and gain. Our job is to decide which losses are acceptable and when to add information to preserve meaning or cultural intent. Effective translation means choosing what to keep, what to adapt, and what to clarify for the target reader. Effective translation means choosing what to keep, what to adapt, and what to clarify for the target reader. In Vietnamese, politeness is expressed through pronouns, particles, and tone. In English, it's usually shown through modal verbs or polite phrasing. Example, Ian, could you open the window? A polite request using could VN. Mo qua so giup toi voi a uses a and giup to express politeness. Same action, request, but the politeness markers are culturally different. 2. Directness versus indirectness. English tends to be direct and efficient. Vietnamese prefers indirectness to maintain harmony. Examples, indirect, I can't go. VN indirect, chak hom naim hong tien lam. A indirect, I disagree. VN indirect, em tai I jo hoi ku. A translator must match the communication style of the target culture, not copy the form of the source language. 3. Face-saving strategies. Vietnamese uses many strategies to protect the listener's and speaker's face, their social dignity. This includes softening statements, apologizing indirectly, or giving hints. Example, Vien Nyaim Hoi Bua Mochut. Literally, my house is a bit messy. Pragmatic meaning, please excuse the mess. And sorry for the mess. English expresses it directly with an apology. The words differ, but the social function is identical. 4. Illocutionary force intended meaning. Illocutionary force is the real intention behind a sentence. Two sentences may look different but perform the same function. Examples, Ian request, VN request. Could you open the window? An mo giup mqua so voi a. Same illocution. Request for action, VN hint, an explicit apology, na emhoi buamochut. Sorry for the mess. Same illocution, apology, asking for understanding. When translating, keep the illocutionary force, not the literal form. Pragmatic equivalence means translating intentions, politeness, and social meaning, not just words. A good translator must feel the hidden message and express it naturally in the target language. In this slide, we look at how translation techniques vary depending on the text type. Not all texts should be translated the same way. A news article, a poem, an advertisement, and a research paper each require different priorities and different techniques. One text types and their priorities A. Informative texts. These include news, reports, manuals. The goal is accuracy and clarity. Use literal or semantic translation, clear structure. Example, in. The report was submitted yesterday. Vien. Bao kao jan juoch nop vaungai hom qua. B. Expressive texts. Literature, speeches, poems focus on emotion, style, and artistic effect. Use modulation, creative wording, sometimes transcreation. Example, VN, try tim toi tan che. EN, my heart melted. C. Operative texts, advertisements, slogans, political messages aim to persuade or influence. Use, adaptation, transcreation, culturally appealing choices. Examples, KFC, finger licking good. VN, vingon trentung ngontay. Keeps the emotional appeal, not the literal meaning. Tiger beer, Ban Lin Jan Ong, EN, bold men choose bold taste. creates a message that fits English marketing culture. D. Academic texts. These include research, textbooks, and scholarly writing. Precision and formality are key. Use. Semantic translation, expansion, standardized terminology. Example, VN. Bien futuok. EN. Dependent variable. 2. Common translation techniques. Borrowing. PHO. Few sushi. Sushi literal. Semantic translation. Economic growth slowed down. Tang truong kin te cham lai. Modulation. Changing perspective or phrasing for naturalness. N. I can't agree. VN. Toi thai I jo chua tuyet puk. Adaptation. Changing cultural references to fit the target audience. EN. Black Friday. VN. Ngai siêu giam gia. Context-based. Reduction, expansion. Reducing or adding information depending on clarity. Expansion. VN. Tet. N. Vietnamese Lunar New Year celebration. Reduction. N. Electronic mail. VN. Email. The key point is that different text types require different translation strategies. The translator's task is to understand the purpose of the text and choose a technique that preserves not only meaning, but also the intended impact on the audience. This slide highlights the most common mistakes translators make when they ignore culture. These errors usually happen when we translate the words, but not the cultural meaning behind them. Understanding these helps students avoid awkward, misleading, or unintentionally funny translations. 1. Literal translation. Literal translation means translating word for word without considering cultural context. This often results in unnatural or funny output. Examples: Jine, Noike, Kuoi Duyeng. Go light, speak softly, smile charmingly. Sounds robotic and strange in English. Chow long. Porridge with intestines. Correct words, wrong effect. Sounds unappetizing. 2. Over-domestication. This happens when translators change too much to make it sound natural, losing the cultural flavor. Example: Tet, translated as Christmas season, oversimplifies and distorts cultural meaning. 3. Wrong politeness level. Vietnamese uses hierarchy and politeness markers. English handles politeness differently. Translating the wrong level can sound rude or overly formal. Examples: VN, An Gyu Pem Voi. Should be, could you help me, not help me. Too direct. N, could you possibly, if translated as Lam Ji. Too rude for, misinterpretation of context. Sometimes words are correct, but the translator misreads the situation. Example: VN, na em hoi buamot chut. Not describing the house, it means please excuse the mess. 5. Ignoring cultural values. Some expressions carry cultural values: respect, modesty, harmony. Ignoring these changes the message. Example: VN, da, con chao bak. Literal: hello uncle. Unnatural: correct. Hello sir. 6. Wrong cultural references. Some metaphors or symbols do not transfer across cultures. Examples: VN, Jiao tat mat toi. Not dark face, dark head. Should be, extremely busy. EN, break a leg. Not gay chanji. Meaning, good luck. In sum, cultural mistakes happen when translators focus only on words. Good translation requires understanding intention, politeness, emotional tone, and cultural background. Always ask, how would a native speaker say this in their culture? To conclude today's lesson, we've seen that translation is more than finding equivalent words. It's about understanding how language and culture interact. English and Vietnamese differ in directness, politeness, idioms, metaphors, and cultural assumptions, and these differences shape how we translate. We explored major cultural dimensions, culture specific items, idioms and proverbs, kinship terms, pragmatic issues, and translation techniques for different text types. Across all of these topics, the key principle remains the same. Translate the meaning, the intention, and the cultural effect, not the words themselves. Good translators act as cultural mediators. We choose expressions that sound natural, respectful, and culturally appropriate in the target language. Sometimes we lose something, sometimes we gain clarity, but our goal is always effective communication between two cultures. As you continue practicing translation, always ask yourself, what does this sentence really mean in its cultural context? And how would a native speaker express this naturally? If you keep these questions in mind, your translations will become more accurate and more professional.